On September 8, 2025, the United States Supreme Court delivered a groundbreaking verdict that captured the nation's attention. In a dramatic move, the court struck down a major element of former President Donald Trump's trade agenda, a policy that had sparked fierce debate at home and abroad throughout his presidency. The justices determined that Trump's sweeping tariffs on a wide range of imported goods, from steel to electronics, exceeded the legal limits of presidential power, stretching far beyond what Congress ever intended. This pivotal decision makes one thing clear: the authority to impose broad import taxes and reshape America's trade relationships lies with Congress, not the president, reaffirming the Constitution's checks and balances. The court found that the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, was never designed to hand the president unlimited control over trade policy, especially without congressional input or approval. With this ruling, a cornerstone of the America First doctrine has been swept away, throwing current and future trade talks into uncertainty and forcing both U.S. businesses and foreign partners to quickly adapt. By reaffirming Congress's constitutional authority over commerce, the Supreme Court has set a bold new standard that could shape how future presidents handle economic and international policy. The decision also opens up thorny questions about the billions collected in tariffs under the now overturned policy, raising the possibility of refunds or other remedies for importers who paid those taxes. Ultimately, this ruling is a powerful reminder of the separation of powers, reshaping Washington's balance for years to come and underscoring that even the presidency is subject to the Constitution and the rule of law. To understand today's ruling, we need to revisit why these tariffs existed. Former President Trump made tariffs central to his America First agenda, aiming to protect American industries and force new trade deals. The administration used tariffs as leverage in negotiations with countries like China, Mexico, and Canada. Their legal justification relied on the IEEPA, claiming a national economic emergency allowed the president to bypass Congress. Critics argued this was a misuse of emergency powers, while supporters saw it as a bold defense of American workers. The tariffs sparked fierce debate. Supporters called them necessary. Critics warned of higher prices and global retaliation. This fundamental disagreement set the stage for the legal battle that reached the Supreme Court. Today's decision marks the end of one of the most contentious trade policies in modern history. The legal fight began when small businesses and several states, feeling the direct impact of new tariffs, decided to take action. They joined forces and filed lawsuits, determined to challenge what they saw as an overreach of executive authority. Their argument was clear. President Trump had exceeded his constitutional authority by imposing sweeping tariffs on imported goods without first seeking approval from Congress, the branch traditionally responsible for regulating trade. The case quickly moved through the federal court system, drawing national attention. In a significant decision, the Federal Circuit Court sided with the plaintiffs, agreeing that the president's actions had crossed a legal line. The court declared that, according to the Constitution, only Congress has the explicit power to regulate foreign commerce, not the president acting alone. The judges found that the president's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, went far beyond what Congress had originally intended when it passed the law decades ago. Although the appeals court stopped short of immediately striking down the tariffs, it set a firm deadline for the Supreme Court to review the case, signaling the urgency and importance of the issue. The stakes were incredibly high. If the Supreme Court declined to take up the case, the tariffs would become illegal overnight, leaving businesses and workers across the country in a state of uncertainty. This sense of urgency propelled the case all the way to the nation's highest court, where the eyes of the country were now focused. The lower court's ruling marked the first major judicial check on presidential tariff power in recent history, setting a powerful precedent for future administrations. Today, the Supreme Court has delivered its answer. Congress, not the president, holds the ultimate authority over trade policy, reaffirming the balance of power between the branches of government. This landmark decision reaffirms the separation of powers at the very heart of the Constitution, ensuring that no single branch can act without meaningful oversight from the others. At the core of this legal battle lies a fundamental question about the separation of powers in the United States government. This isn't just a technical dispute. It's about who truly holds the reins when it comes to making decisions that affect the entire nation. The Trump administration argued that, in times of economic crisis, the president must have broad and flexible authority to act quickly and decisively. They pointed to the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, as a key tool that allows the executive branch to respond to threats without waiting for lengthy congressional debates. Supporters claimed that swift action is essential to protect national interests and economic stability. However, opponents strongly disagreed. They emphasized that the Constitution clearly assigns Congress, not the president, the exclusive power to regulate commerce with foreign nations and to impose taxes and tariffs. Critics argued that allowing the president to use IEEPA as a backdoor for imposing sweeping tariffs would undermine the checks and balances that are central to American democracy. These critics warned that such a move would set a dangerous precedent, opening the door for future presidents to bypass Congress on major economic decisions. They saw this as a potential abuse of executive power, eroding the careful balance established by the founders. Central to the case was the major questions doctrine. This legal principle holds that only Congress, not the executive, can authorize actions of vast economic or political significance. The doctrine serves as a safeguard, ensuring that monumental decisions are made by the branch of government closest to the people. Ultimately, the Supreme Court sided with this interpretation. The justices reinforced that Congress must speak clearly and explicitly when granting the president authority over issues of great national importance. This decision was seen as a reaffirmation of the constitutional order. Had the court ruled differently, it would have set a precedent allowing future presidents to unilaterally shape major economic policies, potentially sidelining Congress and altering the balance of power for generations. Instead, the decision makes it clear: while the president has significant authority in foreign policy, the power to regulate trade and taxes remains firmly with Congress. This ensures that no single branch can dominate such critical areas of governance. In the end, the ruling stands as a powerful defense of the constitutional order, preserving the delicate balance between presidential authority and congressional control that defines American democracy. The real-world impact of the tariffs was immediate and severe for small businesses. Companies relying on imports saw costs soar, forcing them to raise prices or absorb losses. Many argued the tariffs made them less competitive, threatening their survival. States joined the lawsuit, claiming the tariffs hurt local industries and disrupted supply chains. Agricultural states suffered from retaliatory tariffs, while port states saw trade slow. The case highlighted the disconnect between national trade ambitions and local economic pain. Plaintiffs' stories of hardship formed the emotional core of the legal challenge. Today's Supreme Court decision validates their claims and promises relief for businesses and communities hit hardest. The ruling forces a nationwide reckoning with the true costs of the tariff policy. The urgency of this case was undeniable. After the lower court ruled against the tariffs, the Trump administration pushed for a rapid Supreme Court review. The administration warned that letting the lower court's decision stand would cause chaos in trade policy and customs operations. The appeals court's pause on its ruling was set to expire, threatening to make the tariffs illegal overnight. Both sides needed clarity: the administration to preserve its agenda, businesses to end financial uncertainty. The Supreme Court's swift action brought long-awaited resolution. The ruling ends years of legal limbo, allowing businesses and policymakers to move forward. The decisiveness of the court's intervention is as significant as the outcome itself. The nation can now plan for the future with certainty. The financial fallout from today's decision is staggering. The Trump administration warned that overturning the tariffs could disrupt up to $1 trillion in import taxes over a decade. Now, the government may be required to refund billions to companies that paid unlawful tariffs. This creates a massive liability for the Treasury and a complex administrative challenge. Not all tariffs are affected. Those on steel and aluminum under different laws remain. But the broad tariffs on goods from countries like China are now void, delivering a huge financial victory to importers. The ruling also changes the dynamics of ongoing and future trade negotiations. For businesses, it means an end to years of added costs and uncertainty. The economic landscape for importers has been redrawn overnight. This case was always about more than tariffs. It's about the limits of presidential power. The Supreme Court's decision sets a landmark precedent, reinforcing Congress's role in trade policy. The ruling checks executive power, making it clear the president cannot bypass Congress on major economic issues. Future presidents will find it harder to use emergency powers for sweeping economic actions. The decision encourages collaboration between the executive and legislative branches. It clarifies the boundaries of presidential authority and reaffirms Congress's central role in economic policymaking. This ruling will guide future legal battles over executive power. For years to come, it will stand as a powerful defense of the separation of powers.